Welcome back, guys. This is 2019 LOL Champions Korea Spring Split. And this is the preview analyst task joined by Mina Kim and Bittori and Madlife. And this is season 4, the whole show translation. So it is already the end of the first round robin. Feels like it just started like not long a while ago, but it's already the end of the first round. There were a lot of teams and a lot of teams competing for the higher ranks. So I think it's really important for the players and teams to perform very well starting for the second round. All the players must want to win a lot. I mean, if you lose a lot, you actually become a joker on the stage. So I think all the players have to kind of feel better and be more confident facing up the new start of the week. How do you guys think our teamwork as an analyst here? I think all the fans might know maybe we're doing well. I think we're doing fairly well. So let's start off with the issues of last week. So first of all, the no farm strategy. Started as a frostbank strategy, it actually had a very diverse forms and styles. Especially Kingzone kind of pulled that off really well. We have observed very different types of frostbanks and also some counter plays against it. This is FLICKR Zoe actually somehow counterplaying it by invading their jungle a lot. So since the hotfix patch, it is no longer available, but I think there are still more experiments going on. And the second issue is Silas. So we're not really sure whether it is really a nice pick or a trap card. Well, since it's a new champion, it has a very low win rates in the competitive games, but still a lot of teams are kind of preferring it a lot and taking with maybe a first pick or even a blind pick. And number 3, it's Yorick. Back in 2028 days. So the last time it appeared on LCK was 2013. Even Madlife doesn't remember that. And issue number 4 is Sangyun's 1,000 kill at LCK. Sanghyun's dad actually gave in 10K US dollar to celebrate this. And also Sanghyun bought his whole team beef, which costed around 2,000 US dollars. A lot of money was going back and forth over there. And lastly, Griffin having their 8th win streak currently. And their last match for the first round is coming up, so we have to find out whether they can make it a perfect first round of Spring Split. We have to call them a monster in LCK, and they are always on the top rankings of the power ranks. And we had a lot of solo interview with Chovy recently. We have to find out if they can make a perfect first round later today with the first match of today. It's Griffin versus GenG. Chovy is also in the first place for the MVP. So let's check out some rankings over here. This is the standings of all teams. Griffin on the first place and followed by Sandbox and SK Telecom. And the interesting point is that Diamond Game and Kingzone, those are actually both on 4 wins and 4 losses. So I think every match is so important and every single set is so important right now to stack up their points. And also KT, GenG, and FLICKR, they are also on the same records right now, 2 wins and 6 losses. But I mean, it is not a very decent looking record, but they still got second round, so we'll be looking forward to them performing better. And here comes the MVP standings. Chovy apparently on the first place. He stacked up 400 points last week, being the solo MVP for 2 match days. Even after Akali disappeared, he has been showing great performance on Zoe. I mean, Zoe doesn't really seem like an OP, but Chovy is pulling off a creative performance, making Zoe look like a perfect champion. And Chovy is followed by Ghost, Play, Deft, and Roller. And these are the KD rankings of each lane. Sword is the leader here, 6.1. So I think everyone can expect that all the Griffin players will be on the first place. So we are actually curious about the Chovy's current KDA. Tarzan, 15.3. It is also an impossible stat over here, so it's really unbelievable how well they're playing at LCK currently. And moving on to mid lane, Chovy, 30.8. It is almost the end of the first round and his KDA still remains this good. Kind of proves that how well he's performing right now. And number 3 and 4. Can you see the fierce competition going over there with 4.969 and 4.967? The records seem really close over here. And moving on to bot lane, Viper. Followed by Nuclear, Sanghyun, Ghost, and Teddy. Except Viper, actually, all the 4 players, their KD seem really even. So I think all the AD carry players are performing quite well currently. And lastly, it's support. Lehgend, 11.1. Both Viper and Lehgend, they always show great KDA, and also they're followed by Mara, Hoyt, and Ki Tusin. And Hoyt is the one who opens teamfights over there, but still has a very decent KDA. MetLife, do you remember your best KDA in your career? I actually don't remember. I think that means I actually never had a good KDA so far. These were the issues of last week. So let's move on to this week, because we are facing some new changes. So let's check out this CG over here. The 9.3 hotfix is coming up. It's gonna be live today. So Spell Thief and Ancient Coin, they now require an Elite champion within a certain range to earn gold. which means the no farm or frost fancy meta will be out now. So I guess it will not be available for top laners or mid laners to use that. And also it also allows the junglers to not to buy any more wards. So it kind of it was the main reason for game getting extended. But with this new patch, I think the game will be a lot shorter from now on. But still, there is a possibility for Ezreal to use the support items, so we'll have to keep our eyes on it, especially on the bot lane. Going for maybe double frost fangs or ancient coins, so it's still possible. And Ashe will be on the global ban list because under a certain situation, her ultimate is actually invisible currently, so this will be locked until this Sunday. So, we are transferring to second round this week. First round is really at its end, and there are a lot of interesting matches coming up. Today we're having maybe a Telecom war, KT versus SK Telecom later today, and also we'll be looking forward to seeing which team will perform even better at second round robin. Today we're going to be having Griffin versus GenG, but also I'm really looking forward to seeing SK Telecom versus KT Roaster, the traditional Telecom war. And tomorrow, GNR is having their last match for the first round. Will they be able to kind of get out of their losing streak because it is against Kingzone? Well, I think GNR is actually keep improving. They're evolving every match, so maybe they can make it happen against Kingzone. So this will be the end of the previous show of today, and I'm gonna pass it back to our casters. Thank you.
Thank you very much, G-Sun, and it's fantastic to be with you now for another week and the end of the first round robin. We have the last games for every single team until we switch over to the second round robin on Friday. And of course, we save the best till last. GenG versus Griffin to start off the day, and then the auspicious Telecom War, Papa Smithy. It is a good day to be an LCK fan.
It's a Kesper Cup Finals rematch into the Telecom War. On paper, definitely when Kesper was setting out, they're like, this Wednesday is stacked. Let's break records. But in effect, it is, of course, very big favorites against very big underdogs. It could go 2-0, 2-0, but the waters around the world for League of Legends right now have never been murkier in 2019. All the big teams are losing. G2 have taken a loss. TL have taken a loss. Over in China, the bottom teams keep beating the top teams, so anything can happen. Does that extend to Korea? Does it not? I want to find out.
Yeah, well, we were actually asking this question on Sunday, and the answer was no, Papa Smithy.
Sure.
The right teams did win on the day.
But
however,
today
there were
is
some
the day,
upsets,
right?
But exactly right. I feel like coming into today, this is where we know. We're looking at it, we're like, Griffin, 16-1, there is no way that they lose this. There's no way they lose to GenG after coming in 3-0 in the last best of 5. That is going to be our first matchup. And then SKT versus KT looks like the shoes are well and truly on the other foot in 2019 in comparison to 2018. But let's start with GenG versus Griffin. The two Gs, but definitely a different G for Griffin in this one. I mean, in StarCraft, very famously, you type GG when you're losing, and Griffin typing GG when they're winning so far this season.
And who will be the realest G in the room between GenG and Griffin? A Kesper Cup Finals rematch. Damn, has a lot gone right for Griffin since then, and on that day, of course, was a 3-0 in pretty fast fashion. And everything's gone wrong for GenG, so we're looking at it here. It's actually not written on this text, but the cool thing is, if Griffin 2-0 today, they have the best round robin since the start of the LCK format at the start of 2015. In that time, 18-2 in best of ones is the best ever recorded score. SK Telecom T1 in the first round robin of summer 2015 back with Marin and the squad they had back then. Maybe the best team of all time. To me, a better team than even Samsung White in 2014. Now we fast forward all this way to Griffin. Can Griffin go 18-1 their worst score, if they win the match, will in fact be matching 18-2.
And remember, also, that bottom point, 800 points for Chovy already in MVP score, and we've had end-of-season 1000s being the highest possible. As win rate after first turret at 100% is not exactly a stat that we really need to mention for Griffin, because they've got almost 100% win rate anyway.
Those KDA graphs, you know, we were talking to
just disgusting.
host Mina, BitDoll, and of course Madlife, and they have 3 players above 15 KDA after playing 17 games of the season. They're 16-1.
They only have Sword under double-digit KDA.
To give you guys context, there's 18 games in an entire LCS split, and no one averages above 10 KDA with any regularity, but 3 players on the same team above 15 is outrageous stuff. GenG had a bounce-back performance. I was watching at home as they looked a lot better in their series against SKT. Still things to work on, but for once, more than one highlight.
Yeah, exactly right. And Chovy actually getting some solo kills here as well. And the thing that I think is very important is if you have a look at Fly, he's on his Lissandra and was actually playing relatively well. Fly really has been a weak point for GenG for the last few weeks, but wasn't the case, especially not in game number 1 against SKT.
It was a fun series to watch. I think there was issues on both sides, and SKT, they just can't replicate their form every game they play.
Yeah.
I think they do have some down performances here. This is Fly getting back into the fight, having a big engage. As FLICKR and the frontline Corki, I think we could see a lot more Corki today. I'm not 100% convinced on the pick, but just with how much is being played on the LPL, even before the IE change, I think that just as an indication that Korean and LPL teams have been scrimming against each other in recent weeks.
Well, we're going to have a look at Griffin here. Chovy hunting for aimings. And yeah,
Aiming
your flash ain't going to get you out of the way of that one.
precisely everything wrong in this play. He was half a second late on the spell shield and flashed anyway. From there, though, it's not a lot of good things to talk about with a FLICKR for Griffin, just another 2-0.
It was, and it was a pretty damn impressive 2-0 as well. FLICKR was certainly punished for almost everything that they did and got made to look like a second-rate squad, but that's what Griffin seems to be doing. It is only Sandbox that's been able to find a game, and even then, they needed as many OP picks as they could possibly get on that current patch. Griffin just diving with reckless abandon, but can they do it against GenG, who have been looking a little bit better? The answer in my mind is a certain yes, but you never know. Things have been topsy-turvy around the world, and the winds of change may hit Korea today.
And I know that I judge players, like everyone else, based on the numbers. The biggest number, the best player, the lowest number, the worst. Easily 5 times the player is Tarzan over Peanut, is what I'm learning today.
Oh my god.
The rest of the stats here, not so interesting. It's not nice being 11th on anything, but no. DPM for junglers, 11th, so a sub is ahead of Peanut.
Says actually a lot for Peanut at the moment because, you know, he has been herbivoring a little bit more than you'd otherwise like, and on champions like Elise, that is not where you want to be seeing your jungler. Peanut really needs to find a bounce back. I don't know whether against Griffin is going to be the best place to find it. However, you've got to start somewhere, and if they can find a win here, imagine that for a momentum boost. Would feel a whole lot better.
Griffin look just like they outmatched GenG in every role, but we know the best of these GenG players, which again, we haven't seen on the Rift at the same time in 2019, should be a lot more competitive. It wasn't competitive in the Kesper Cup final, but GenG had a great tournament until that moment. Can they redefine their season? Can they find whatever's happening around the world and channel it into another upset victory for the first time in recent memory? GenG need to find another level to catch the team at another level. Griffin.
Yep, well, we're going to see them right now. This is your roster as Roach will be leading the charge. It was Chovy up against SKT in every game, like we mentioned earlier on, but this time around, it's the Young Guns' turn. We'll see whether he's going to be able to change things here for GenG. No Frostmancy. We are finally hot-fixed here at 9.3. Feels like we're going to have 3 distinct metas one week after the other, because I believe next week is going to be 9.4. So certainly a lot of changes week to week here in the LCK.
And even day to day, Atlas. We can start the week with no Yasuos, and 2 days later, everyone's first pick, first banning Yasuos. Just seeing where teams are on the first day of a match week is so interesting to see. And when it comes to Korea, people only look to the anointed representative in MSI. People are already handing the title to Griffin. You understand why, based on 8 best-of-3s, but there's 10 to play. And remember that Griffin started their debut season in the LCK 8-1 before crashing down to earth in the second round robin They're looking to go one better, and one better than almost perfection is entire perfection. They are shooting for the 9-0.
Yep. Also shooting for that 18-1, the best record in LCK history for a round robin. And when the second best, if they are able to do it, is 2015 SKT, only losing, really, in MSI, that incredible best of 5 against Edward Gaming. That was one hell of a year for SKT, and could this be one hell of a year for Griffin, setting themselves up already, but this GenG squad are going to try and pip them at the post here right at the very end.
And you just look at the team and say, if they were to win, who's popping off? Because apart from Ruler, who we can always kind of ink in, someone needs to help Ruler get to the late game. And it has to me be Peanut or Fly. I think it has to be one of these players having one of those career best performances. The Aurelion Soul coming and dusting out, Peanut popping off on Lee Sin. Because you look at the team of Griffin here, it stays the same, but it's just utter class on the Rift every time we see them. It's game 1 where Griffin looks the most vulnerable. I think game 2, teams are just broken and they just roll over to Griffin. A game 1 performance, a game 1 drop, an inspired moment that is going to be played again and again by GenG fans. That is what we need to see today from GenG, because otherwise the etc., the every other scenario is a Griffin 2-0.
Yeah, exactly right. And I feel like it needs to happen early, which is something that's a very tough ask. For GenG, you mentioned Fly and Peanut needing to outperform, but Chovy has been so extraordinarily good, and I look at that mid lane as such a mismatch between GenG and Griffin. Fly has not been up to par, and Chovy has been exceeding just about every expectation that you can have for a mid laner. 4 MVPs in a row, looking to stack that one higher here today in game number 1. Could potentially actually take that record from Tarzan, who had that 4 in a row earlier in the season.
Here's what I'll say. The only time to me that Griffin have looked vulnerable, that Griffin have looked less than a next-level team, is actually in pick and ban, where sometimes they roll the dice and have 3 losing lanes in a Zac, and I'm like, what are we doing here, guys? But then they're really good, right, in game. I think Trace can set the start here. Trace and Edgar, I think, get one of those priority draws with 3 winning lanes, and then if you pilot it, not at 100%, but somewhere near there, you can beat Griffin. They are not an unbeatable team. No one around the world is infallible. So because of that, pick and ban is sometimes where Griffin can kind of trip over their own shoelaces, and let's see if GenG can find a win really early.
Yeah, I'd actually really like that, and I'd actually like it with Zac in the jungle as well. I feel like Peanut has been performing almost the best so far this season on that Zac pickup, and if you can get priority in all 3 lanes, it really will give Peanut that ability, that agency to get around the map and really get things going. We know that his Zac likes to strike much earlier than a lot of others, especially when he debuted it after his buffs last year.
Remember, guys, there has been some roster additions in some squads. For example, Griffin have a new sub-jungler, but those are not live until the second robin kicks off. That is the second match of Friday. Last match I cast of the week will be when those new rosters are in effect, so no changes there. We got to close out business in the first round robin. Nothing but business for Viper on screen right now. It's nice and warm in the studio, at least from our vantage point, but still a hot pack there. For Viper, never want cold hands on stage, but we're 8 best of 3s in, so I don't think any stage fright issues for either side.
No, especially not when you've been winning every single series. You could imagine that it's relative comfort up there. They sit on those chairs and they're like, oh, it's my winning chair. Once again, not so much for life though, as you can see on your screen right here. He wants to get his hands on his Gragas. His Gragas has been fantastic in a lot of instances.
And when we roll into pick bans, there's definitely 1 or 2 picks so that this guy could pop off on this.
Oh, yeah.
But that is really clear info, and basically every other champion is 0-4, 0-3, so you kind of just look at Griffin and say, which poisons are we picking? Like, who are we banning out? Because with 3 bans, you can probably ban out the effective champion pool of 2 people.
Yes.
A duo lane, a couple of solo lanes, 2 jungle picks. There's a lot that can go on with these bans here, so it's very intriguing to see where Griffin's eyes are trained on as the Griffin fans continue to multiply, Atlas.
Yeah,
we're getting into a Griffin epidemic when it comes to new LCK fans.
Yeah, we'll actually have to check out to see who's going to be louder, the Griffin fans or the SKT fans, in our next series. But Pick and Ban is finally ready, and do Griffin just throw the gauntlet? Do they just ban the Gragas and the Lissandra on the red side and just not care about these really powerful picks? I guess it's time to find out.
How Griffin approaches pick ban today will be very interesting. Loading into pick ban now. VOD Watch is joining us. Reminder, we are on patch 9.3, just like last week, but the hot fixes are live. So the only Frostmancy strategies that can really be run are in the duo lane. Ezreal, of course, with Frostmancy, a pretty famous one.
Yep.
So there could still be shenanigans, and Griffin have been loving bot lane Galio with Frostmancy. That is going to ban away Galio, and it's our first targeted support Galio ban since Sandbox was drawing some for Joker.
Yeah, and the questions that we were asking are going to be shedding some light on themselves here as the Ezreal's going to be banned away here by Griffin. I feel like much more important to get rid of it when you're up against Ruler. We saw on Sunday, the Ezreal priority was relatively low, but we didn't necessarily have our big Ezreal players playing on that day, but we saw Teddy versus Deft. It was whoever got the Ezreal won the game, so not going to see that one. Here is the Gragas going to be taken away from life.
And isn't this interesting? Because they banned Gragas in a spot where I would have thought Lissandra. And I agree that Life has been really good on Gragas, and he's more of an engaged player, so even though he has wins on Braum, the fact that he can't be a primary engage kind of makes you feel really good about the scenario. But they give up Lissandra if GenG want it, and Urgot, which of course is the staple pick for anyone. But because both of them are up, they're going to hover both. We're going to see a Nocturne hover, very intriguingly, into the Urgot lock-in. I actually thought LCK was weirdly dropping Urgot priority at the start of last week, but it should still be super high, and thankfully it is for GenG.
And certainly going to be very high for Roach as well. Has been picking it almost every single time he can get his hands on it. Has been playing very impressively on the champion as well, as Sword is hovering. Another champion that can dabble in the Frostmancy on the bottom side of the map, and there's the Thresh to be picked up alongside it. Does make it look a little bit like a bottom lane duo, but certainly the Cassiopeia can be flexed into multiple different lanes. I love this. The Yasuo are going to be locked in from GenG, and does this mean a bottom lane to come out, because the Alistar is there as well for life?
And this is something we were talking about off screen, is that Yasuo priority by midweek last week was going way up.
Oh yeah.
And bot lane Yasuo is being invested in pretty reliably. I think there's some matchups you really like it into. I think Ezreal is a really good matchup for Yasuo, but we'll wait and see if it does end up being two first-round Awesome Dude duos on the bot side. Ruler has still never played an Awesome Dude in competitive play. He's only played AD carry, so this would be a big movement away for him. He still hasn't played a Cassio game. He never played any of those other non-AD carries last year. So the first thought is Fly, but given that Fly isn't a standard Yasuo player, do we see history made today in one way or the other?
Certainly could be. I actually think that it will be Ruler. As far as the awesome dudes that he's been practicing in solo queue ever since they first came out, it was the Yasuo for Ruler when he was mucking around on it. Of course, never played it in competitive, but has got a lot of games on the champion.
Griffin are the unique team where they can have 4 champions and a support, and Viper would have played all of those in competitive play before. We are heavily expecting Jace top against Urgot here, just for a priority matchup on the side of Griffin, but like we mentioned, things can go differently. Nocturne going to be banned. It's one of Peanut's fallback champions. When it comes to Peanut this season, Lee Sin has been his go-to. I wonder if Griffin would consider taking it away, because we finally saw Tarzan play it for the first time in his LCK era. Wasn't necessarily awe-inspiring, but has looked great on it in solo queue, so will be a potential contested jungle pick in the second round, with it jumping up in priority and having really good synergy with the Yasuo.
I think that's fantastic. I think the Griffin are going to go for a Lissandra pickup here. We saw Chovy actually have an MVP performance on the pickup as we jump out of pick and ban, I believe, unless... Oh, okay, so a little bit of an issue there, but I think we are still here. We are still here. We're all right. Don't worry, guys.
Hold me out.
Olaf's going to be banned away, and that's an insta-lock.
Extra hold me. I'm not sure about this one.
Yeah, I'm not sure about it either.
So let's see where this is going. The Urgot matchup is one that I've definitely been, on paper, a fan of, but actually with Executioner's calling running around, this matchup's going better and better for Urgot, so Sylas mid might actually be the flex here. Getting a lot of issues, unfortunately, when it comes to the pick and ban guys, but I assume the Sylas pick is going to be a legitimate one.
I mean, after the first little while that we've had with Sylas, the weird thing is that, yes, we've been talking about the Urgot matchup theoretically being okay, but in competitive play, it's his worst matchup.
It's one of those things where if you play it out, especially when the champion is new, and you think about it, which is how I usually think of these things, it does have a lot of merit, but I think Executioner's calling being rolled in has really taken away those trades where you end with the Kingslayer. Now, if you end with the Kingslayer, you get 150 HP instead of 300 plus, and it just feels a lot worse. So even that one, I'm like, I can see it, but I don't really feel it, if you know what I mean. So.
And also in the kill trades that you're taking up against Spellbook, Urgot, often you're going to get ignited anyway.
And remember, in that G2 loss, they were trying to get a win with the Sylas and lost, actually, Atlas. So maybe Griffin trying to be a bit mortal here. Whenever teams try Sylas, it's largely worked against the team wherever they stand on the standings.
Yeah, we've seen a few different things.
Nuggery.
Yeah. And the AP has looked very good. In fact, the region that's played the most Sylas at the moment is Japan. With a whole bunch of games.
OPL
11
as well,
already.
right?
Yeah, so 6 for the LPL. Sorry, the OPL. So that's second highest most played, but only a 50% win rate. In Japan, 72.7% win rate. They really like the Sylas, and they're playing it a heck of a lot all over the Rift.
If you look at, and you actually have Games of Legends open with the different regions in Sylas, I believe there's no major region with a 50% or better win rate on sites. All these play-in regions that are getting good value out of Sylas.
A lot less games coming in over there as well, and in fact, out of the major regions, Korea has the most games played.
I mean, we also play best of threes, so LPL and
That's
LCK
true.
are likely to have the most games played of a champion. LPL still on 9.2, makes watching those games a little bit tricky still this week. I heard they're doing their good old skip all the way to 9.4 in typical
what they do.
fashion.
That's how it generally works around the Chinese New Year. So here we are, back in again, and I believe we're going to have a repeat of the same pickup, so this should hopefully rocket through pretty quickly.
Let's get in there. Let's get into the second round. That's where our eyes are trained. We had Viper locking in Sylas and trying to make sense of returning to that Doshgar Sylas pick that only Nogari has won on so far in the LCK.
Only 3 teams actually picking the Sylas up in SKT, Sandbox, and Kingzone. Rascal playing both of the games on Kingzone's side, whereas FLICKR and Khan have both picked up the Sylas in top and mid. We'll see where Griffin is going to put it. Could be potentially in a lot of different places, but we're looking at the Cassiopeia as being most likely on the bottom side, with a Jace on the top side for Sword in that priority matchup into the Urgot, and then I'd like the Sylas into the mid lane, especially being piloted by Chovy, just because with his Akali gone, I want to see a melee assassin for it.
There's some simple things you can say, like Roach played basically only Urgot when he's played in the LCK. He's 4-2 on the pick. He got some Aatrox wins recently, but Urgot is kind of his pick, so you're thinking Urgot top. We're going to get to the second round because, again, there's never been anything other than 80 carries played by Ruler. It's actually a huge thing. He was the last of the 80 carries. I had that last of the Mohicans meme that I tweeted out last season. He was the only standstill when Prey, Bang, and everyone else was returning to the off-meta stuff. He refused to go there, so it'd already be a statement for him against the prototype of awesome dudes, the prototype of non-marksman.
The Darius
Viper.
player.
He played Darius most recently. Unlikely he can fit in a Darius if Sylas is actually locked in here. We'll wait and see if the Sylas pick was legitimate.
Hey, well, I mean, the Sylas is most likely going to be locked in here by... Oh, actually, no. So, it wasn't actually a legit pick.
Good to know. Okay, no Sylas on the side of Griffin so far. It turns out that was a misdraft. We're going to be going into Aatrox territory, which now makes you wonder about who the bot laner is, because Aatrox probably going into the Urgot lane.
Yeah, and also could be going into the jungle as well. Actually, since the Umbral Dash changes, I've liked him more as a jungler rather than a top laner as Fly. Finally, someone other than BDD has done it as the A-Soul to be picked up for the mid lane for GenG.
That's what we've been looking for, the dragon we've been waiting for. BDD was the entree, but the main course, sorry NA fans, the real main course here is definitely going to be Fly on Aurelion Soul.
But Papa, do you know what this means? This means absolutely everyone can set Ruler up for a last breath. Absolutely everyone. Voice of Light can throw them all backwards. Yasuo can jump on top. The answer is going to be that Sylas, as Viper has it at the moment. But I have a feeling it's going to be going into the hands of Chovy.
All right.
Griffin have one hell of a team composition.
And here we go. We found comfort, finally, Atlas, on the side of GenG. But amusingly, Ruler is the one who's conforming. Everybody else is on close to ultra comfort. Life is a playmaker. Peanut is a Lee Sin main. Roach has found most of his success on Urgot. And finally, Fly brings back Aurelion Soul. Knock-ups are plenty. And Ruler in the late game will profit off them.
And what were we talking about before? Getting Peanut onto a priority champion, onto a champion that he feels the comfort on. Fly as well. How can he be on Lissandra? And, like,
have a decent game? Well, it doesn't actually matter. He's on ultra comfort now. In the Aurelion Sol, finally able to play it here in 2019. A lot of very exciting adjustments that GenG have made coming into this game, and Griffin have thrown a hell of a lot of gauntlets with this composition.
Definitely, you look at GenG and say, man, some nice synergy here, and Fly on a pick that he really made his name on when he returned from China back to, at the time, KT Rolster, where he was starting mid laner. He was big on the Aurelion Sol pick, brought it to Longzhu, brought it around the world. He's finally back on Aurelion Sol after BDD has played 2 games of it. Can he actually find a relevant performance on a champion that is not Lissandra? Is something we are waiting to see in the 2019 season. Meanwhile, Griffin have gone for the sort of comp where you look at the picks and say, oh, I could see this losing. Oh, other teams haven't been able to win with this.
Yeah.
Tier list-wise and top region-wise, Sylas hasn't been winning. Can Chovy make us a believer? Can Griffin find the victory in game number 1?
Well, we'll find out right now as we hit the rift. Griffin Faithful in full voice, as you can see, Ruler down here on the bottom side, just waiting to see whether there's any sort of invade shenanigans. We know that it's not going to be happening.
And Ruler plays a melee champion for the first time in his career. Really cool to see. Refused to jump on any mages or any of those melee assassins or other off-meta picks in 2018.
Until the Yasuo, which I think is the best thing, because what GenG does is they play around Ruler, and now they have everyone as a Yasuo facilitator. That last breath could be activated off absolutely everyone, and Life has the quintessential pick for him as well.
Important note here, Chovy has gone Aftershock mid lane on the Sylas. When you see Aftershock Sylas, it's almost always jungle in solo queue from what I have seen. Obviously in professional play, we've seen Grasp and Comet as well. No one has really found a min-max keystone for the Sylas. No one's really found a build they're super happy for with Sylas, so we'll wait and see what the approach is here from Chovy. If it's FLICKR, he likes to go for that kind of off-tank Rod of Ages, Iceborne Gauntlet kind of build. Wait and track what Chovy prefers, as bot lane, no AD carries to be found in a GenG series.
Yeah, so that's going to mean that Cassiopeia has a range advantage down on the bottom side of the map, which is not something that you talk about all that often.
She also has the interaction with the wind wall, where Q does go through wind wall.
Yeah.
Does mean you can harass here, and Qmax is almost always the standard. So a standard mid lane interaction. It's in a bot lane. Alistair Yasuo, when we first had Yasuo bot lanes, was the very obvious Yasuo duo, right? Because Alistair from level 2 has a ultra-reliable, targeted, headbutt pulverize, engage for the last breath, but a very weak laning duo at level 1, a very weak laning duo at most levels. There was a time where Soraka was just a hard counter to this lane because it's so hard for them to step up outside of an all-in. So because it's double range against double melee, it's time to give up basically any lane presence for a while.
Well, that's 11-0, and no, it's not Frostmancy, guys. We do have the hot fix, and Yasuo wouldn't be doing that anyway. Double Relic, though, means that they're going to be very healthy down here, as Ruler and Life just wait for the minion wave to turn up, not in any rush to get anything done, and they've got a decent amount of vision already as early wards placed down in the river. Tarzan already taking the Rift Scuttler and heading back into his jungle, as Aatrox jungle was what came out from Griffin in the end, which is understandable based on what we've seen so far.
I gotta say, priority-wise, bot lane for Griffin, obvious. You can see it on screen. Jace, implied. Mid lane is probably a bit more even. I give a slight advantage to Aurelion Sol because you can just dump his mana and back. That is the nature of Aurelion Sol, but priority-wise...
Aurelion Sol is sort of new Hecker in mid lane.
Well, this is a great time to invade, though. With that priority we spoke about, so hard for Peanut to find too much control of the jungle. Lehgend roams first, Chovy roams first. Because of that, great video actually produced by Shakarez and also Vedius from the LEC on lane priority. This is what happens when you get lane priority. You invade first, and your jungler says, guys, I need some backup, and you ain't getting any.
Yep, not a chance. As Fly is able to deal with this minion wave, but it's a little bit too late. So that's going to be a 3-buff start coming in for Tarzan. Not going to get double scuttled, though, as Peanut was able to grab the northern one. And a back is going to come in. So like you say, Fly, pretty comfortable with heading back home basically whenever he wants, because he's got that big old Comet, as Ruler has a wind wall for the hook, and Lehend's not going to find any joy on that one at this stage. So things still just calming down.
all of that extra priority and all of that extra jungle control that Griffin has is not going to amount to too much, as now Ruler looking to go aggressive against Viper.
We know that Peanut was bot side, but that was not information revealed the side of Griffin. You can see why he wasn't a big fan of some of these lanes, because definitely early laning phase for Vlad or Yasuo is perennially going to be a bit of a struggle. With Peanut's coverage, they get to push up, and first time they've actually had access to the minion wave. Do note that even if all CS is gained by Viper, it's about a 9 CS lead for the side of Viper, so it's not like 15-0 like it started. That's all about minions that hadn't died or being frozen, but it seems like just over a minion and a half wave advantage to the side of Griffin in the first 5 minutes.
And Papa, I want to talk about what Sylas sort of means in this particular game.
Sure.
Sylas gets a whole bunch of different abilities when he's playing in different compositions and against different compositions especially, but I just want to point out that there's an unbreakable will available. Unkillable Sylas sounds like a really horrible thing to have to deal with.
Yes, I can track the logic, but I think when you hit late game and the, man, don't I have a lot of base damage on my passive proccing if I abuse it goes away, I don't think it really matters that much because you already have Aftershocks. You're already pretty tanky.
Yeah,
being ultra tanky doesn't really change much to me, so I agree there's games where that makes sense. If you were Comet full AP, I think it could be nice, but in this particular game, I actually look at the enemy side and I'm like, Urgot ult, I think, is always the one you love, because whatever build you go, it's reliably strong.
Whoa.
Nice little play there from Lehgend, actually, to stop Life from getting any value.
Nice
it's not
sidestep from Ruler.
It's definitely not an ultra high value Sylas ult stealing game, but there is, of course, nice synergies to talk about.
Yeah, Voice of Light also very, very strong coming in from Chovy, but not going to be scaling as much as some of the other buttons that you'd have access to. As now GenG looking to try and find some calmness, some collectedness, and they're doing a pretty good job finding it. 6 minutes into the game, only 300 gold going to be the lead from Griffin, but you'd expect that given the priority that they are going to have.
I want to mention,
having a look in the mid lane, everything's great for Fly.
I wanted to talk about the mid lane, but I might have to hold the point as Tarzan's setting up a tent in the bot lane against double melee. Seems like Peanut is aware of what could be happening here.
Well, Hook is going to land here under Ruler. Good playback as Miasma is down, stopping any of the dashes from coming through. But Peanut bides his time. He's waiting. Only level 5, though, so not going to have the kick just yet. And that Sonic Wave just going wide onto Tarzan. So just a bit of biffo down on the bottom side. Not too much to come from it.
What I want to draw, though, is usually when Aurelion solo's in the game, you look at the jungle mid duo and say, these guys start roaming level 3, level 4. Damn, they're going to punish. But Peanut had his jungle stolen, and counter-jungling, being a battle ward against the enemy jungler when the enemy mid laner is Aurelion Sol, takes away any realistic roam potential. If you have eyes on Aurelion Sol under his turret and the enemy jungler, you don't have that same threat of Aurelion Sol really taking over the game. At this point, both Fly and Peanut are level 6 and can actually have access to the side lanes pretty quickly. So they've subverted the first 7 minutes. Now you're getting to the point where you're like, they really need to make this first roam work, because if they don't get some of these losing lanes a bit of breathing room, there could eventually be pretty significant CS leads, as the first item finish is going to be pretty sweet on the side of Griffin.
Yeah, and Chovy already 11 CS in the lead, is going to go back to base. Finishes off a Catalyst, so it looks like Rod of Ages could be item number 1, unless he wants to go for an Abyssal Mask, which I guess kind of works on the Sylas as well. Haven't seen it so far. It's been a lot more the tank echo type ideas with the Iceborne Gauntlet and things like that, but top side of the map is where you generally see that, so Chovy going to be changing things. You know, FLICKR was building a little bit more tanky from the mid lane when he picked up the Sylas as well.
But in solo queue, he was actually commonly building Rod of Ages, and you look at the team and say, yes, it gives his Cassio more damage, but the enemy team is 1 magic damage threat, and it's a roaming magic damage threat as well, so I think the Abyssal Mask has pretty low value overall in terms of how the game is going to play out, which is going to be Sylas in the side lane with teleport, so probably going to be Rod of Ages. Here's that all in. Aftershock procced, and Fly says, well, not much I can do.
And that is with Chainlash maxed here from Chovy as well. So normally we see Kingslayer being maxed from the Sylas, but this time around in the mid lane, Chovy going for as much wave clear as possible. And against Aurelion Sol, I actually think that's genius. Being able to get lane priority against the dragon, prevent him from moving around the map willy-nilly.
And if you're out there saying, okay, I still don't really understand Sylas in a solo lane with Aftershock, maybe Rod of Ages, give me another champion, Papa Smithy, to point at. You think, Rod of Ages into something like a Zhonya's, and Aftershock, kind of Swainish, right? Feels like it's going to be one of those kind of approaches to the Sylas, is trying to play him for zone control, and maxing your CC ability first does build into that idea of being a kind of zone control mage in a team fight. So I think that's the Sylas we're seeing threatened by Chovy in this Aftershock mid lane situation.
Well, starting to get smashed around a little bit here by Fly, who's unfortunately just got comets everywhere for Chovy to deal with, but Chovy should be all right here, just clearing out minions left, right, and center, and continuing to have a pretty powerful advantage. Here in mid, I feel like Sylas does feel a little bit like Swain and Cassidy mixed together, or something like that, you know? It's just a little bit more of a melee version of the old Swain.
I mean, I saw the Kale champion spotlight,
Oh,
and I think she's got the Cassidy thing going on, so we'll leave Cassidy to those two.
I think it's the Cassidy of a few years back when he needed to be on the ban list every single game.
Yeah, look, we haven't seen the numbers or how it plays out, but certainly you see the level 16 passive, and you say, okay.
Yeah, you look at a kit like that, and you're like, oh man, these better have some very tiny numbers, otherwise it's going to be busted.
I would give Riot the benefit of the doubt for trade-offs, but then Akali happens, so we'll wait and see if they have their eye in on that one. Zooming into the mid lane, where we finally see some action. Tarzan ahead of the play.
Yeah, well, Peanut's actually just going to safeguard all the way over. Kick stolen here by Chovy. Can bounce each other back however often they want. But Tarzan's going to turn up, and that means that nothing doing really. And Dragon Rage is picked up by Chovy because I feel like he wants it for a potential roam play. Peanut moving down, last breath, onto Viper, who takes the lantern, but it's in the wrong direction. As Ruler's now in trouble. Oh, Viper, he whiffs the ultimate, and now Ruler's trying to chase after him. The Q going to land, but it's going to be onto Tarzan as he's going to live. Viper's okay, and the kill actually comes down for Tarzan. World Ender's in there. He's got the full life bar, but is actually going to head back home as Chovy in a bit of a kerfuffle with Fly, but it's going to continue on the bottom side of the map. Tarzan survives, and Ruler's going to fall. It's a disaster for GenG when it could have been so good.
And it seemed like it would be perfect. There was no value out of the Petrifying Gaze, and yet even in the 1%ers, Griffin make you a believer. They're able to turn it around. They get the 2 kills. Chovy just roaming around the mid lane and keeping Fly in the lane. The roam advantage massive for Fly, but the ability to get out of lane, 0% chance.
Yeah, exactly. This is the thing, because I feel like with that Q-Max now, it's just so much wave clear coming in from Chovy that Dragon just has to be there the whole time. No common legend options at all as Griffin going to land the hook to start this one off. But watch where the Petrifying Gaze goes.
It's very bold. Remember, Lehgend opens this with his jungler nowhere near onto the Alistar as ultimate. That's the curious part. I was looking for the Petrifying Gaze, and I believe it got Windwall. Regardless, it got no value. As the fight comes on, Tarzan is there behind the play. Viper, with his sidesteps, just lives on a sliver. A Q there, and he's done. Backs away from there. We thought the play might be over as we watched the brawling in mid lane, but this time the death sentence is a lot more clean. They take down Ruler, they take down the duo of GenG.
Yeah, and now that range advantage is going to be even more prevalent on the bottom side. Viper has a bunch more items and a 20 CS advantage and a whole minion wave to pick up here underneath the turret as well. I mean, as far as having your cake and eating it too is concerned, Griffin doing pretty well on the bottom side of the map. 3,000 gold is where the lead is, sort of erupting out of nowhere, and I feel like we're going to be a lot more honest with our gold leads here. Last week was Frostmancy making things a bit confusing. Gold was a bit strange as on the top side. Chovy finds the abscond onto Fly, and the Voice of Light does come out, but oh, the flash has to be used, and the Infernal Chain's not going to register.
And Peanut was just soloing down the Drake as bot lane.
All right, we got another double play coming back here, but a lot of damage now onto Viper. Finally gets cut down by the Lee Sin as the knockup comes forward. Sword has to complete the teleport, of course, and now Roach could be in trouble. Tarzan chasing after him. Chovy trying to get on in here. Doesn't get knocked up as there's the abscond to get right into this fight right now. And thankfully does have that aftershock to keep him alive. He's going to give up his own life just to save the rest of his team. And now Griffin have a big push onto the bottom lane outer turret.
A bot lane party. Finally the Cassiopeia goes down. Ultimate was a couple of seconds available from cooldown there. They're going to chase for more, though. Tarzan's
looking
rolling
for some knockups. Yeah, exactly. I feel like Aatrox versus Zergod has been a matchup no matter where both of these champions are, as now Ruler underneath the turret without a wind wall struggling against Sword, where I've seen this matchup, and this doesn't go so well. Okay, just boops him out of the way. No wind wall available, I don't think, earlier on, but we'll have it now for any cheeky shock blasts.
I gotta say, Griffin are getting in the mud with GenG this game.
Yeah.
They are brawling. They are not looking for any finesse in their early play. Some great individual moments, but they are not looking for anything other than early fights. They're skirmishing a lot harder than they were since about week 1 of the LCK. The turret plates rain down on bot side, and the reason why Griffin re-engaged 4v5 was a lot of ults were used for one kill. The full commitment from GenG meant that after the play was over, whatever fallback objectives were kind of free for the side of Griffin. They get all those turret plates. They do get the Ocean Drake as well. And they're roaming topside to stop there being an answering Rift Herald from GenG.
Yeah, thankfully for Peanut, he is able to get the Rift Scuttler, so at least they'll have permanent vision for the next little while that can't be removed. But looks like the transition of power for Griffin will be to move their vision towards topside, and Shelly's not going to be an easy objective here for GenG like you talk about. Zhonya's is completed here for Viper, so he's going to be a lot more comfortable, especially in these physical matchups, as this is something that can happen basically all day. On-demand ultimates here for Ruler, and Peanut comes in just the right time.
And against another team, if you're ever caught unawares, flash headbutt is enough. You don't even need to pulverize, right, to get the last breath going. Any displacement will do it, and everyone's got one. So because of that, Griffin are actually, for once, surprised by the decisiveness of life on a playmaker. This is why they drew a Gragas ban, you'll remember, in the first round of the pick and ban. From there, we already talked about how all the fallback objectives after the all-in were going to be freebies for Griffin. They get a kill, get the Drake, and also that bot lane turret. Remember, the priority in the lanes, other things being equal, were that with the side of Griffin, instead of 3 losing lanes, we're looking at 3 winning lanes in CS, and in some cases, winning by a bit.
Yeah, winning by a massive margin, as 20 CS was the value for Viper against Ruler, but it certainly is the value for Chovy now against Fly. This feels like Chovy's able to get every minion extraordinarily easily here, and Sword putting on pressure. But Control Ward just going to be the priority here for the Sylas, so not going to be worried too much about the Jace moving on into the mid lane. He's going to head back down bottom side and continue putting on pressure as Griffin has successfully moved their lanes around to make sure that they can't get punished or anything like that rotated on after taking that outer turret.
Right now, looking at item timing, Shiv is done for Rulers, becoming the new standard. When I saw the item changes, I thought IE Shiv would be the new build. But I think players are going kind of IE Sterix rather than Phantom Dancer on.
Yeah, I feel like the lifeline choice in the Sterix is just a more handsome one for the Yasuo.
I'm a big fan because I think Phantom Dancer was heavily buffed for 80 carries, so they don't have to drop off damage as much. They can still get attack speed and crit while getting a shield compared to, say, a Maw or other things. But for Yasuo in particular, given that he really used the old passive well, I think it was pretty much a straight nerf. So Sterix second might be the decision here. Maybe full damage if he feels like they need it. Part of Aegis timing's done for both mid laners. But Griffin continue to rotate, and Fly still caught under his own turret.
Well, Chovy not actually going to pick up any aggro here, and he's super healthy with his run of Aegis. Oh my god! I think Fly was there a moment ago as there's the kickback. Ruler finds the ultimate, but the flash is going to get Tarzan out of there, and Griffin get away scot-free, and it looks like they will also be able to pick up this turret.
And apparently they don't like Fly very much. It was a double flash to get just a kill. They should be able to take the turret as well, but they don't have enough vision, so they back away. That's some rare bloodlust for Griffin. They really...
feel like that's been what's happening so far this game. And I love it against GenG because what did GenG do? Not a whole lot in the early games most of the time. And Griffin have said, well, let's just make this a high-octane early game. And what are they going to do about it? The answer is not a whole lot and not enough against Griffin.
Super hard engage here onto the mid lane. This one, the kills, they got him. Good news on that one. Sword returns to the bot side. Black Cleaver in tow. Not going to have any kill threat onto Roach in the side lane. But already you're seeing some of those farm bounties and even some kill bounties grow on the side of Griffin. GenG, they've been cooped under their own turrets, even with their roaming mid lane. We were so excited to see the return of Aurelion Sol. We've had 3 games of Aurelion Sol and no game that's been dominated by Aurelion Sol roaming so far in LCK Spring.
Yeah, I mean, BDD has looked good on the champion, and we've been wondering why more people haven't been picking him up since the slight upgrades to him, but this is not really making me a believer thus far. Fly could certainly get some things done, but it just feels like Chovy's Sylas pick has worked far better than we could have possibly imagined here in the mid lane against the Dragon. 0-0-2, 650 farm bounty for Chovy there, and the mid lane outer turret just falls organically as it's just watched. Fly on the bottom side of the map, not going to be able to help keep his turret alive at all, and his Rod of Ages is a few stacks behind that of Chovy's.
Let's talk about team comps here, because we've kind of been focused on, oh, look at this quirky pick, and wow, amazing outplay.
Yeah.
And talk about how the comps play out. Do notice that Griffin have really no engage on their side. Thresh Hook is not going to work in the late game. If you try to ARAM with this team, you have some decent poke, but again, your Siege is not that great either. He'd rather Jace in a side lane than sieging in mid lane. So This comp from Griffin is much better with map control, because kiting back, they're very powerful. Petrifying Gaze reactively, for example, the box also. So Griffin really want to make this game around a Baron take. They've got Cassiopeia, if she has blue buff, and as you notice, not Ludens, but the extra mana of going for Seraphs. It's largely about neutral control into winning a team fight that way. GenG are about roaming picks. That didn't happen in the early game, much harder in the mid to late game. And then team fight engages, so if you engage on a team that likes to counter-engage, that does suit the side of Griffin as top side.
Yeah, Ruler has to flash and has to use his wind wall very early here, but Lehgend does have the box now on cooldown. Can trade for that flash from Ruler, so that's something at least to take away here from GenG, but not having flash on Ruler is very scary.
That does mean we can get moments like this where the game doesn't play into either side. When Griffin don't have map control, they're slowly trying to get it. Meanwhile, GenG just thinking about an engage. Don't see it yet.
Pulv is going to come in. Last breath being held onto for a very long time. His life has to flash to get himself out. That's the kickback onto Chovy to avoid him getting into the backline, but Tarzan is still there. Viper looking for a lot more damage. The Petrifying Gaze already used very early in this fight. And GenG do kite away relatively effectively, but priority now given over to Griffin on this Infernal.
You kind of see the worst of both team comps there is Griffin bait and engage, which they want. We already mentioned they're a counter-engage team, but then Viper's flashing just to get a single kill because they have no more chase after GenG start to disengage. So ends up being very messy. However, the fallback objective after all of that is Infernal. They still get the objective they're playing around, and Griffin will just want to increasingly make this game 3 control wards around Baron and baiting an over-eager engage from someone like Life around the Baron.
Yeah, and it will be easier and easier to take down the cow as well, and especially the purple worm that you're talking about, the Baron, because Viper just turns his Archangels into a Seraph's Embrace. Now more items to be picked up here as he goes back home. It's just a blasting one, but I believe third item, Void Staff, would make some sense here for the Cassiopeia. Sword underneath this turret. Probably not going to walk into Peanut and Roach, but actually does. Roach is going to answer that one with a Purge, and that's why he doesn't take any notable damage.
And you know what Ruler's answering us with? An Infinity Edge second
wow,
who needs a lifeline, baby?
Yeah.
He's got life as a support. Lifeline is just irrelevant in this game. He's going for max damage. It means pick power is strong. It means the right team fight where eyes are not on the Yasuo, he can really clean up. You look at the enemy team of Griffin and tanks. I mean, they don't really have a real tank, right? On the side of Griffin, a lot of off tanks, Aatrox passive, and Chovy with Aftershock, but no hard tanks. So given that, and Magic Resist being the second item choice of Chovy, there's always an outside chance that even 5,000 gold behind, one Yasuo fight can do it. Now, you're asking for a team fight victory against Griffin, and they don't seem to lose team fights ever after 20 minutes, but there is at least a slim win condition, which on another day, GenG may never have been granted against this opposition.
Yeah, precisely. Very excited to see whether Ruler can make it work, and I actually love this about this particular build on the Yasuo as well, going Static Shiv. Then you get to build that pickaxe into whatever you want if it is your next item purchase, because of course Sterix builds out of it as well. So you can be a lot more flexible on your way towards the Infinity Edge.
You want to see some flexing? Look at that mid lane CS. That's insane lead. Speaking of mid laners.
Yeah, Voice of Light is going to come in here for Chovy. Can throw it down on a fly if he wants. He's already used the flash though, and he's just crushed by Tarzan. Chovy so happy to tank up this turret for so incredibly long, and Griffin take down the outer so easily.
Finally a top lane Sylas we like. Unfortunately, as a mid laner, moving to that area. The Rod of Ages build into almost a Spirit Visage makes the tanking with an Aatrox so easy, right? You can't kill two people.
Tanky,
both of them are so hard to kill. GenG need to hard engage as a unit, so in the side lanes, they had taken heavy losses in 1v2 and 1v3 scenarios, and that's around the champion that's supposed to be outnumbering the members of Griffin.
Precisely. Well, bottom side of the map, Sword is going to go back home. See what he can pick up here as Guardian Angel could be an option, but with the stopwatch unused just yet, I'd like to see something like a Duskblade. And no, he's going to go... We've seen this a whole lot more. A lot of Last Whispers being picked up as they've been buffed just a little bit with a little bit more damage options. As Chovy, it looks like he's going to go Rod of Ages into that full tank build.
Do you want to hear something really scary?
What's that?
I'll hold it till when we get the scoreboards up again. First, we'll talk about this, but I noticed something that made me very concerned. Turret dive, very easy with Aatrox and also the Sylas Aftershock. Sylas and a big health bar and Aatrox passive, but if you actually count CS, it's about 130 CS that Griffin that GenG have lost to the turret, that have lost to nothing. 130 creeps have died unclaimed by GenG. That is an insane amount for 23 minutes in the game. And that shows the pressure of drafting losing lanes and a roamer that couldn't roam. They've literally lost out on 130 times at least, what, 18 to even more gold for each of these CS, right? A lot of this gold lead is purely CS that GenG have missed.
Yeah, and that gold lead is approaching 8,000 as well. I mean, what is it with Griffin games and looking up at the scoreboard and being like, oh, they're completely crushing their opponent here at 25 minutes in. It's just, it feels so suffocating, so oppressive, which is why we talk about 2015 SKT so often when we reference Griffin, because the last time that we felt this kind of craziness and this kind of guaranteed win. You know, you remember when you were watching SKT back in that time and they could be behind by 4,000 gold, but you never actually thought they'd lose the game. And it was almost always true. And Griffin's making us feel the same way as Chovy. Has to flash to get out of the way of Roach's ultimate, but now he's continuing this fight as Tarzan diving forward. Infernal Chains means that the A-Soul is going to go down, and Chovy grabs that kill, and now Life. Nice double knock-up, but has to flash to get himself out. There was no way Ruler was diving in with his ultimate on that one. He's got his new Infinity Edge, but no way to use it.
Aurelion Sol was supposed to be the ace in the hole, the ace up the sleeve, but it hasn't been that way this game. He's been so well held, even though it's the first game we're seeing of it from GenG. So well scouted by Griffin, and now, damned if you do, damned if you don't, they have a full engaged team, and they're getting split pushed, and they're losing Baron.
Yep, it's a 4v4 here around the Baron pit, and in the meantime, Sword's just on the bottom side of the map with a teleport available, knocking on the front door. Griffin not wanting to actually go for this one, but they're just keeping GenG busy. You feel like they may as well as Life. Gonna get the headbutt back onto Tarzan, but Tarzan just straight up doesn't care. World Ender not available just yet, as Chovy does have that unbreakable will as Peanut dives into the back line. Can he actually get the work done as Viper is into his Zhonya's, but he's not going to last for too much longer. Double kill now for the Yasuo as the knockup comes in. Chovy extraordinarily healthy as, oh my god, what is this damage potential? And he's not taking any of it. The Kingslayer gave him almost his whole health bar back as Sword just kills Fly underneath his own turret. It's one of those in the meantime stories, and Chovy ain't finished yet. He's going to get rid of the Urgot. It looked like it was the best possible scenario for GenG. Ruler almost popping off, but he doesn't.
And we got to see the scientific experimentation. You asked, all right, what about stealing Alstar? Oh, what will it do?
Oh,
it didn't help him kill people, but it bought so much time where he couldn't die, and he was doing relevant damage. For Sword to split push, kill the Aurelion Sol a second time in the same passage of play, and get the inhibitor, it may not make him a murderer, but damned if it doesn't make him just the tankiest guy ever.
Yeah, exactly. And also, you get a bit of AD off that one, and when you've got a Sheen with you as well, I mean, you're going to be double dipping into that.
I don't think Griffin should be allowed to double dip. It should be single dip for Griffin. Everyone else can double dip.
Exactly. I mean, he didn't look at the rules on the packet of Doritos, I don't think, Papa Smithy, is there's too much dipping. His Sword, yeah, that's a very, very dead dragon. We got excited when we saw it being picked up here from Fly. Certainly a famous pick for him, but hasn't looked great so far. Last Breath finally gets used here, but it just, Griffin, they use aggro so incredibly well in these team fights that it just feels like there's no options for any team against this squad.
Especially because this was always going to be a true 4v4. Teleports up for Jace, but he ain't teleporting. He's always committing. We're getting a replay though. GenG is saying, let's just run it Baron. We got a team fight comp. This is the closest we're going to get to a team fight.
Oh, Chovy has a kick available. Look at them all lined up. Throws in the Q. Can he actually get this work done as Tarzan jumps on over? That's going to be the solo ultimate out from Ruler, but can they actually get it? Oh, Chovy with so much health back into the grinder now, as that's a three-man fear coming in for Roach, but they are looking to try and just disengage. 1-for-1, and good God, this Sylas tanked up the whole GenG squad.
And Griffin staying around the Baron. The Sylas bought a lot of time, but that was a great move by GenG. You remember last week, we were watching games where we said, the team's only win condition is to try to roll at a Baron. They got a kill and backed away. Today, GenG say, we got a team fight comp and we lost our bot lane inhibitor, the one furthest away from the Baron. We're never going to get a 5v5 fight. We have to suicide Baron and take the turn fight even with lower health bars, because we're never going to get anything else resembling a 5v5 team fight, and our comp doesn't do anything else. They end up with a 1-for-1, and while that isn't a game winner, because they're already so far behind in gold, that is still the best macro play they could make. at 28 minutes into the game. So credit to them. They made a lot of mistakes in this game and this season, but this was the best they could hope for.
Yeah, I completely agree. As look at this. Look at Chovy just tanking this for so incredibly long. Gets the kick onto Roach to bring him out of there, and I don't know whether he's almost able to get another ultimate here towards the end, but gets put in the grinder. And that was actually a 4-man.
Think about the same fight with one more item on all the carries on the side of GenG, and you say, huh?
If that Sterix was in there for Ruler, if a GA was on top of that, if this Yasuo was popping off a little bit further, yeah, you're exactly right. It's a very different story. However, it feels like all the stories in a Griffin game are written by Griffin.
Just remember, if the game becomes about 5v5s, which I already said that GenG are all about super knockups and a Yasuo, you've got Tank Silas. We know he does a lot of tanking. He doesn't do a lot of killing. We have Viper, who has been pretty well shut down. Of course, gap close onto him, and CC makes Cassio's job as a mid-range kind of machine gun mage unreliable. Jace, Aatrox team fighting, you know, like, okay. Yep. There is still team fights in the ultra late game that GenG can win, and this is after Griffin had a massive start to the game. There is 3 items on the Yasuo. I think Griffin need to get this game done in the next commitment, the next 5v5, the next 4v4. Otherwise, the Elo Heaven is still there for GenG in spite of a rough start.
Oh, you're talking about the next 5v5. Griffin are putting themselves in position to try and get there as Infernal Chain not going to find Ruler. And Shock Blast, these need to land from Sword to soften up the members of GenG before these fights. Chovy clears out the minion wave though, and Griffin move back towards the Baron, and GenG need to be careful. Minute and a half on the Infernal Drake. You can imagine that Griffin will move over and try and take that one down. As Tarzan, another Infernal Chain lands, as it's another ultimate from the Alistar picked up here from Chovy, and he's going for the initiation. Wants to find some extra knockups now as Life's going to get the headbutt back in. But Chovy has the Unbreakable Will, and it's both of the Unbreakable Wills just trying to tank up, and Chovy's is so much better. Miasma is flashed into, and now Ruler's trying to kite this one back, but it's just not going to work. The Aurelion Soul once again going to go down second. It's a triple kill coming in for Sword, as Chovy's found Peanut once more. Flashes over, but Blastcone is going to keep the Lee Sin alive. Shock Blast, Sword's hunting for it. Can he find it? They're going to be able to win anyway. Yeah, they're going to jump in through the bottom side of the map, and it looks like Super Creeps, as they prepared earlier, will be able to finish this game.
That'll be the game ender. In the replay, you'll see that there was actually a big disagreement, a mistake from GenG in that fight that cost them a lot. It's not going to matter. Griffin win when they need to. They needed to win before the Yasuo was truly online. Turns out they get there, but perhaps only just.
Yeah, but I just loved how they adjusted their play, not to the composition they're against, but to the team that they're against. It was almost mindless aggression. It was almost like sandbox levels of early game power from this Griffin squad. Not something that they've demonstrated so far, but something that works very well against GenG. A beautiful win here.
And Chovy knows his role. He takes Alistar ult and says, I'm just going to get in the back line and let's fight now, not later, now. And he can force that because he's in 4 people's face and doing some relevant CC and damage. When we get the replay, you'll note that in this team fight, Alistar flash pulls 4 people, and Ruler doesn't take the ult because he's still trying to kill the Silas in front of him. He does not commit when Alistar is hard committing, and that already is a problem. Life's life, awkward to say, is completely void because he's going in and he's not getting backup, and you can't make a split call when the game is going to be there for you later and is being forced to be played right now.
Yeah, exactly right. So was tanking, was doing a great job in the back line there, was Life, and you thought theoretically things could go well, but Silas doing the same thing with a whole bunch more money and such a gigantic gold lead. I don't know whether this really changes our opinion on what Silas is and what he does here in the meta so far. I feel like we need to see more wins from him and understand exactly what he's good at, but certainly looked better coming from the mid lane here in the LCK than it has on the top side of the map, even if Nogari's got a couple of wins.
And again, felt a lot like Swain to me.
Yeah.
But Swain mid lane matchups and kind of Tank Echo top lane matchups, if you think about it and take a step back, they're not that different, right? No. When you think of lane identity, Rod of Ages into off-tank, Spirit Visage, Iceborne Gauntlet, Zonias. That's what FLICKR was doing in solo queue. He dropped the Rod of Ages for competitive play.
Damn.
Looking over the numbers, and you get those base damage procs in enough, and apparently it adds up. Chovy able to win with any champion. Griffin goes 17-1. So that means if they were playing in the LCS, they'd be done. And 17-1's a pretty good scoreline.
And the other thing that's really difficult is it Silas that's good, or is it Chovy that's just too good? Oh, it's so hard to work out, man. I know that if we had LS here and we could let him chime in, he'd be like, no, Griffin are too good, Silas is still a rubbish champion. But
I don't know. I feel like it did work out very nicely, and I think that you've got to have a look at your opposition and then last pick the Sylas instead of what, you know, SKT were doing with the Sylas, where they were picking him very, very early in priority. So maybe that's going to be the option here for Sylas. If you see a whole lot of high-value ultimates, that's when you can pick him up.
And if you're feeling the turret diving with that aftershock, damn was he tanky, and damn was it effective.
Yeah, feels like the best one we've seen so far. It's our third keystone for Sylas. Will we see another one? We'll have to wait until after the break for game number 2 between GenG and Griffin, so don't go anywhere, guys.